Joining us live now out of Canberra is the Labor Senator Murray Watt. Murray, good to see you. Thanks for your time as always. So the PM's ordered Direction 99 be torn up. Do you accept it was a failure?
I certainly accept, Pete, that the AAT did not interpret this direction in the way that the government intended and never interpreted it in a way in line with community expectations. And that's why we've now taken that firm action within a couple of days of this issue being raised. So the new direction that will now exist will put community safety as the highest priority for the AAT to consider. When the changes were made to the direction by Minister Giles, it was never intended that community safety or the seriousness of the offending would be relegated below other priorities. But unfortunately, the way the AAT has interpreted this has not given sufficient weight to community safety, and now we're fixing it.
Right, so you're not taking any blame?
No, I don't think that was ever intended by the government or any minister that the AAT would interpret this direction in the way that they have. If you look at the direction, it sets out 5 priorities and 5 factors that need to be considered more than any other by the AAT, but there was never anything in there that said that they should not consider the seriousness of offending. It was never the government's intention to see people convicted of very serious offences on the loose. But I think the other thing that's really important in this story, Pete, is that we saw yesterday in Senate estimates the attacks from Peter Dutton and his colleagues completely blow up in their face. Because what we learned in Senate estimates yesterday was that while Peter Dutton was the Minister for Home Affairs, more than 100 convicted sex offenders were released from detention without a single ankle bracelet, without a single curfew being applied to them. All up, there were about 140 domestic violence offenders, sex offenders, murderers and other serious offenders who Peter Dutton allowed to be released from detention without any protections whatsoever. So I think Peter Dutton and his colleagues have got some explaining to do today. They've been running around for months now, setting a standard that ministers who allow criminals to be released from detention should resign. Well, are they going to apply the same standard to themselves?
Can you guarantee the new direction will give no room for interpretation that serious offenders should not be allowed to remain in Australia?
That is certainly the government's intention, Pete. Of course, these things will always be interpreted by... Well, of course, we do have a Westminster system where tribunals and courts interpret government laws, but we are making it as clear as we possibly can to the new tribunal, which we're setting up to consider these decisions, that more than any other factor, they must consider community safety. We also need to consider, Pete, that the decisions that we're talking about here are where government ministers or departments have already decided to cancel someone's visa because of their behaviour and decided that they're not satisfactory people to stay in the country. They've usually been appealed to the department and been told, no, you're still going. Then they've gone to the AAT and had that overturned. And even in the AAT, the government has always strongly argued for those people to have their visas cancelled. So as a government, we've done everything we possibly can to ensure that these people don't stay in Australia. And with this new direction, we're taking things one step further.
OK. How can you have confidence in Stephanie Foster after the department failed to notify Giles about the D99 decisions? And we're also caught napping for the NZYQ case. I mean, that's 2 pretty big bungles.
Yeah, look, I think Stephanie Foster, as the Secretary of the Department, has acknowledged that her department failed ministers in not providing that advice in the way that they should have done. And that was canvassed over the last couple of days in estimates. We also do need to remember, though, that this department was left in as an absolute shambles, again, by Peter Dutton and the former coalition government when they lost office. We've now had 3 or 4 different reviews looking at different aspects of this department, which have uncovered the fact that the migration agent scheme was being grossly rorted. We've had criminals involved in human trafficking under the immigration system left by Peter Dutton. We've had laws passed that didn't stand up in court and led to all of these people being released. So to some extent, I feel for the department with the shambles that they were left. Just last Friday, a new review was tabled looking at the changes that need to be made in the department. It acknowledged that Stephanie Foster and the executive team have made significant changes, but this is just one more mess that Peter Dutton and his colleagues have left behind for us to fix.